Okay, so what we're going to do today is a video on high level, band 9, less common vocabulary. Many of you ask this, many of you say that you know what this is, and we're going to show you a tool, an online tool that you can use. Not our tool, it's actually Cambridge English that have produced it, and the British Council I think as well, so you know that you can trust it, and it enables you to copy and paste your essays or anybody's essays or any text whatsoever into this online tool and assess the vocabulary. So let's jump into my computer around here and we can have a look. Okay, so this is not the tool. I need to show you this before we begin. So this is the Common European Framework of References, CEFR. You might be familiar with this if you've done a level test or you've been put in one of these levels in your English school. So we don't want to go into detail on each of the levels and what they mean. You can look that up yourself if you're interested in that. But basically, A1 is the lowest, C1, C2, those are the highest, C2 is the highest. Ignore all this stuff in the middle and then look over to your right here, the Ielts level. Let me just actually, can I enlarge this? No, it doesn't let me enlarge it, doesn't matter. Okay, so 8.5 is equivalent to C2, 7.5, 7, 6.5 equivalent to C1, 6.5, 6, 5.5 equivalent to B2. Now, does this mean that people who are getting a band 8, 8.5 are just in their essays or the speaking test just using lots and lots and lots and lots of C2 vocabulary? Does most of their vocabulary correspond with this level or not? It's something that you really need to understand if you are hoping to get one of these higher levels. Because if you misunderstand what you're supposed to do in the test, if you don't understand what the examiners want, then you won't be able to give it to them. So the tool that I'm going to show you is on this website called English Profile. So if we click into englishprofile.org, and it's created by Cambridge English, British Council, University of Cambridge. You know, obviously you can trust it if it's made by these organizations. And the thing that we want to look at is English vocabulary profile and then text inspector. Okay, so what is text inspector? Very simply, you can copy and paste any text. So that could be your essay, someone else's essay, a journal, a magazine article, whatever. Just paste it in here, click start workflow, and it will analyze the vocabulary and it will break it down. So this is what it looks like. So what I've done is I have put in one of my essays into it, and what it does is it categorizes all the different words, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, and there's some unlisted that it doesn't recognize. So basically it tells you all the words, the basic words you're using, and the higher level words that you're using. But the interesting thing is when it breaks it down, this bar chart here. So if you look at my essay, nearly 40% A1, A2, like well over half of my words are A1, A2, the lower level words. 17% B1, B2, so 30% are kind of in the middle, and then the higher level words, just 6%. So when I showed this to my VIP students, some of them said, oh, does that mean that your essay isn't very good? Because they saw that, you know, the vast majority of the words that I used were these lower level words. And they said, well, teacher, if you're using only 6%, that means that your essay isn't very good. Okay, so I'm very open to criticism. There's no problem and I actually enjoy it when my students and I have these kind of debates, because it normally leads to very eye-opening conclusions when we finish. So what I did was I got a article from the Harvard Business Review. So it's called A Blueprint for Digital Companies Financial Reporting. And I said to my students, well, if you go to Harvard, your English level and your vocabulary range is probably pretty good. If you're writing for the Harvard Business Review, it is probably excellent, world class. So what I've done is I copied and pasted the 3 paragraphs at the beginning, and I put it in here, and it categorized all these different words. And then, to some of my students' shock, the Harvard Business Review was very similar. So A1 about a third, A2 15%, B1, B2 about a third, no C2 words at all, and only 5% C1. So one of my students said, maybe that's a fluke, maybe you're just lucky, maybe that article wasn't very good. So what I did, I went and got an academic journal, the Cambridge Journal of Economics. Again, copied and pasted this in. So if you're being published by the Cambridge Journal of Economics, your vocabulary level is probably pretty good. So we have a look here. Again, nearly all the words are A1, A2, B1, B2, and only 6%. So it's very, very similar to my profile. 6% here, 6% here. Very, very, very similar. So what does this teach us about vocabulary? So let me jump back in front of the camera, and we'll talk about some conclusions that you can draw from this and some of the things that you can learn from this. So the first conclusion that we can draw is good writing, effective writing, clear writing, even at a very, very high level, like in an academic journal or the Harvard Business Review, does not just include lots and lots and lots and lots of high-level words. The vast majority of the words will be lower level. Why is that? Well, the purpose of writing is not to show off your vocabulary. Imagine trying to write an email, just a simple email to someone like, how are you? Do you want to go to the cinema next weekend? Imagine trying to write that, but to include nothing but really, really complicated, complex words and grammar structures. It would be impossible. The purpose of writing is not to show off. The purpose of writing is to clearly communicate with the reader. And that's why, if you look at good writing, the vast majority of words will be simple, lower level words, because that is what clear writing is. It will have, and I don't want to get into percentages, but if you do your own research and look at, go and look at some really good magazine articles or academic journals or newspaper articles and put them through that system and look at the percentage of the words at C1, C2. The other conclusion that we can draw is that if you're hoping to get a band 7, a band 8, a band 9, you do need to be able to use some of those words, but not to the extent that most students believe. One thing that I used to do with my students when I was teaching them in the classroom, in the very first lesson, before I even introduced myself, I would give them a band 6 essay and a band 9 essay, hand it out to students and say, which one's band 6, which one's band 9. 90% of the students would always say that the band 9 was the band 6 and the band 6 was the band 9. Why was that? Well, the band 9, they said, was too simple. Also, if I write any sample essays, the first thing a lot of students say is that's not a good essay, it's too simple. That's what you will normally find when you look at band 8, band 9 essays. The vast majority of the language will be simple. They will have a sprinkling of some of the higher level words, but they will use those words correctly. And that's the third conclusion that we can draw from this. There's no point in putting your essay through that text inspector, and if you've got lots of C1, C2 words in it, that doesn't mean you're going to get a band 9 or a band 8 for vocabulary, because range is only one thing. The more important thing really is accuracy. Did you use those words accurately and appropriately? If you didn't, it doesn't matter if you used those words, you're going to get a low score, because you're not only judged on the range of vocabulary, you're judged on the accuracy of your vocabulary. Finally, the fourth conclusion that we can draw from that is you should always be trying to improve your vocabulary. And it's not about learning lists of C2 words or C1 words. It's not about that. It's about naturally improving your vocabulary every single day. And I will put a link below in the description for this video that will give you a free copy of my vocabulary improvement plan, which will teach you exactly what to do. It's a free ebook that you can download and have a look there. Hopefully you found that video interesting. Check it out, play around with the text inspector. It's really interesting. Maybe it's interesting for me because I'm an English teacher and I'm always interested in that type of thing, but it is interesting. Stick your essays into it, play around with it, maybe bring it to class, and if you have it on your phone you could put your friends' essays into it and have a look. It's always really interesting, but remember, it is not just about having lots of C1, C2 words. It's about using those words appropriately and accurately, and more importantly, doing the basics correctly. Getting the A1, the A2, the B1, the B2 words correct, as much as focusing on the C1, C2 words. Learn how to walk before you can run. Thanks very much, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.